All right, we're going to be looking at economics explained. We're going to be talking about what is economics, why do we care, and where are we going with it. And from Crash Course, there's an introductory video. It takes a little bit of time. You need to pause this, go check out this video. You can launch it from my PowerPoint. Obviously can't launch it from the video because you can't click on it here. But anyway, go check that out and then come back to this. All right, many feel the study of economics begins with the concept of needs and wants. How do you define a need? Think about that for a second. And bam, a need is something we must have in order to survive. What could you possibly need in life? Pause for a second and come up with at least 5 things you might need in life. Possible answers are anything along the lines of food, shelter, water, air, and so on. They are things you need in order to survive. If needs are things you have to have, what are wants? Well, they're going to be things you don't necessarily have to have. You desire them, but you don't necessarily need them. Think about it for a second. Think of 5 things. Pause this. Moving on. iPhone, high fashion clothing that costs more, a guitar, but let's look at clothing for a second. Clothing could be a need, but a want might be fashion clothing that's more expensive that you don't necessarily need, you just want it because a cheaper pair of pants might get the job done. So we're going to be finding out that perspective plays a lot in what we're doing here. Some people might perceive something as a want, some might perceive it as a need, and that's going to be an issue. So what do you think this is floating in this glass of water? If you don't know or you can't figure it out, it is lovely old Alka-Seltzer, an effervescent antacid and pain reliever. Now, you underage students should not know anything about this subject, but if people have too much of this evil substance called alcohol, they indulge in too much of it, what might they wake up with the next morning? I'm sure the only way you know this, the only reason why you know this is because you've maybe seen those movies that you weren't supposed to watch called The Hangover, but look, blah, it's a hangover. How about that? So if a person has one of these so-called hangovers, their head is pounding, they feel like they're going to die, is Alka-Seltzer a want or a need? Go ahead and tell that person that they just want Alka-Seltzer, they don't need it, they may stab you in the head because they feel that bad. Let's be a little more realistic here and look at something like this lovely little pink Fiat. Is a car a want or a need for people living in New York City? Is a car a want or a need for people living in Dallas, Texas? Well, in New York, you've got options like mass transit, the subway, rail, taxi cabs. Walking is an option because stuff's often close enough. And having a car might actually be a pain. So if you have a car, you probably want one. You don't necessarily need it. But in Dallas, Texas, we're spread out all over the place. So you probably have to have a car. Think about how many of you guys out there listening to this, your parents, we're in Flower Mound, Texas. How many of your parents work in Dallas or Fort Worth? Walking to Dallas or Fort Worth would not be a realistic option. So wants and needs are going to be different for various groups based on their perspective. So we have wants and needs out of the way. So what we're basically doing is building the definition of economics here, if you haven't figured it out. We fulfill these wants and needs with what? Stuff. But what is this stuff? It's goods and services. We fulfill our wants and needs with goods and services. What are goods and services? Goods are physical items that we create and find useful. What could be an example of a good? Shoes, shirt, car, so on. Services are actions or activities that one person or group performs for another. Examples of services: lawn care, pool care, health care, and so on. Types of goods. We need to look at this because this is kind of important when we're analyzing this stuff. A final good is a good in the form it's going to be sold to a consumer. The pet rock, as useless as it was, and hard to believe people actually wanted these things in the 70s, was actually sold in a little box shown over here. Whoops, went too far. And what was in the box? The rock and your care and feeding instructions and all that kind of stuff. But this was the form it was sold to consumers. But we have these things called intermediate goods that I accidentally clicked on a second ago, but I am not re-recording this at this point. Intermediate goods are used in the production of a final good. What we have on here is a whole bunch of old style car parts. These car parts would be like 1970s stuff, but just go with it. Does Ford make batteries? Do they make tires? No, Ford buys batteries from somebody else. They buy tires from somebody else. And so an intermediate good is a good that goes into the production of another good that could maybe also be sold as a final good. When you buy a battery that's in a car, you buy a new car, it's got a battery. When Ford got that, it was an intermediate good. It went into the final good of an automobile. But at some point, the battery's going to wear out or the tires are going to wear out, and you're going to have to go replace it. So a battery can be an intermediate good. Tires can be an intermediate good, but they can be final goods also when you go to buy them in a replacement form. Batteries aren't usually packaged. They're sitting on the shelf of the auto store, and that's how they come as a final good. But if they're in a car, they're an intermediate good. And also consider that these intermediate goods, they may not have been made in the United States. Like Ford might be getting headlights from Asia and circuit boards or something from Asia and getting transmissions from Mexico, whatever. We also have to make sure you understand what a durable good is, and that's a good that's supposed to last a long time, such as a car or a TV. So a car would be a final good, and it would also be a durable good. And then I backed up trying to get to it, but don't worry about it. Probably gave some of you a seizure just then. Non-durable goods are goods that last a short amount of time, such as writing paper or food. But then we got this lovely picture of a light bulb right here, and I keep hitting the button. A light bulb, technically it's supposed to be a non-durable. You replace them, they're cheap to replace, but now that LEDs have come onto the scene and they're more expensive and they last longer, have they transitioned into a durable good? Why I'm pointing this out is sometimes it's kind of hard to classify these things, but basically if it's supposed to last a long time, it's durable. If it's consumed quickly and gone, poof, it's a non-durable. Consumer goods are goods intended for consumers, like toys, like this crazy little monkey thing. Capital good is good intended for a producer or business, and we're going to talk about different kinds of capital later on, like a factory robot. Factory robots are built for businesses so they can put them in a factory and create things. A consumer good is a final product that a company's trying to make a profit off of that you buy, take home, get satisfaction and utility from. What do we need to create goods and services? Do cars grow on trees? No, we need resources. Iron, cotton, those are raw resources, but keep in mind, most of the time people get locked into this thinking that resources need to be raw resources. You can have refined resources like gasoline. Polo, the clothing company, is not buying cotton balls to make their shirts. They're buying cotton that's already been made from the cotton balls and then dyeing it, cutting it up, and making shirts. Are people a resource? Absolutely. You need them to get things done. Are resources unlimited? Now, in the era of green technology, they kind of use terminology and talk about things being unlimited, et cetera, but there's really nothing that's unlimited. The sun's not going to last forever. It will burn out, turn into a black hole someday. Wind power doesn't blow all the time. Most things are limited to some degree. And because resources are limited, we have to also deal with the concept of scarcity. What do you think scarcity means? We only have so much, and our resources are limited to produce goods and services we want and need. And if something is scarce, that usually means it's more expensive. So what I'm getting to is scarcity. Scarcity deals with the fact that some things are rarer than other things. Generally speaking, if something's rare and it's desirable and you want it, it's probably going to be more expensive. We have scarcity. There's only so much of certain things out there. Don't get scarcity and shortage confused. Scarcity deals with how rare things are, and if they're rare and we want them and desire them, they're going to be more expensive usually. There are some things that are rare we don't care about because they don't have any use or utility. And then shortages are when producers cannot or will not meet demand at current prices. So don't get them confused, but scarcity is a whole different deal. There's a video, you need to go check this out, on scarcity and exchange. We create goods and services to fill wants and needs, and these wants and needs are almost unlimited. But our resources are limited due to scarcity. And how does economics play into this? Watch this video from AC/DC. Good stuff from them as always. And it's tied into Star Wars, so some of you may really like that. Pause this, go check it out. And basically what we have done through all of this, within a few minutes, I've basically given you the definition of economics. It's the study of how individuals and societies choose to allocate these scarce resources to produce goods and services we want and need. And we get these things through economic exchange. But you'll notice there's an underlying thing here, ceteris paribus or paribus or whatever it is. If it's in Greek or Latin, you should at this point know in your lives it's important. It's stuck with us for a long time. And it translates into all things held constant, other factors can change. We're going to see that ceteris paribus is a big deal. There's other Latin stuff that always pops up in econ, like K Bono, the Who Profits, Cavet Emptor, Buyer Beware, all that kind of stuff. But we use our scarce resources to satisfy unlimited wants and needs. It's a central problem for economic systems and society. And when ceteris paribus is in play, like you can get the gas that you want. A company can sell you the gas and make a profit. You would always like to get it cheaper, and we're going to talk about these laws of supply and demand later on. But a company can sell gas. There's a price out there. They can sell at that price, make a profit, you can get it, and you do get a degree of satisfaction and use out of it and utility and all that, and everything's in balance. But if there's an interruption, like a hurricane closes all the refineries to shut down, and there's a shortage, you know that when there's a shortage of gas, or you should be able to figure out, the price will go up. And when those refineries are shut down and the prices are moving around and increasing, and sometimes prices go down for other reasons, that's when ceteris paribus is not being held in, or is not in play. Things aren't being held in check. There is no consistency. We want stable markets. Markets are going to tend towards something we call equilibrium that we're going to discuss in here. And when there's no balance and there's surpluses or shortages, people can't get what they want or need, firms can't make money, when things are going on, ceteris paribus is not in play because things are not being held constant. Markets want consistency. They want stability. They want balance. You want a situation where a firm can sell something, make a profit, you can get what you want and need, there's no shortages or surpluses, and you get satisfaction from it. Yes, firms would always like to charge more. Yes, people want to get everything cheaper, but we're going to find out those are the things that push markets towards what I'm talking about, equilibrium. Ceteris paribus is huge in all of this. Before we continue, I do want to throw this out there because there's no place else really to put it. We have to make sure we know the difference between macro and microeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with economics on national or international scales, things like GDP, employment issues, inflation, politics. It's big picture economics, where microeconomics deals with economics on a lower personal level, like individual households and businesses. And if you go to college being an econ major and you focus on macro, you've got to be a master of micro, and micro people have to be masters of macro because sometimes it's hard to tell where the division is between these things. If you have a snow cone stand and you have only one snow cone stand, you're falling in the realm of micro. But if you have them all over the world, you're going to have a macro situation most likely. But, you know, where do you make that dividing line? If you have them all over Texas, is that macro or micro? If you have them all over the United States, is that macro or micro? If it's all over North America, then it goes to global. We don't really care sometimes about that dividing line, but micro and macro forces are things we're going to have to deal with, or concepts we're going to have to deal with. And then I mentioned GDP. By the time you're a senior in high school, you're kind of supposed to know what GDP is, but that's always kind of a difficult thing for people. So take a look at this video, pause this, go check out once again from the people at ACDC who always do an awesome job. We've got this concept of GDP that you need to know. And I will see you later.